an unnatural identity online, that's unmanaged stress. Ethics is the thread that keeps power clean. So ethics isn't a separate module.
It's the operating system. It's where we lean into our true identities, our true selves. Change the Real with Monique Velasquez
and Piper Kessler.
For more than 20 years, we've worked in video production behind the scenes, helping mission-driven organizations and leaders.
This podcast exists for leaders who know their stories matter and are ready to stop guessing and start using video strategically to further their mission.
Not just fill a content calendar.
Each month, we drop 2 types of episodes.
One with Piper and I kicking it, sharing production insight from our own work.
And another featuring real stories about using media to create change
and connection. This is Change the Real.
Representation starts here.
I want to ask you something uncomfortable. Why are you so tired from posting? If this is your area of genius, you built a career on this, you know your craft. You have receipts, and yet showing up online feels like emotional CrossFit. Why is that?
Because the algorithm hates us.
No, because you are performing the wrong identity. You're trying to educate when you're an advocate. You're trying to coach when you're a curator. You're trying to inspire when you're actually an expert. And that mismatch, it's draining you. Today, we fix that. Okay, let's talk about the pressure to show up, because apparently you're supposed to educate like a professor, advocate like a nonprofit, report like a journalist, coach like a therapist, sell like a closer, inspire like a preacher, and smile like you slept 8 hours. Who signed up for this?
The algorithm. The algorithm signed you up.
No. The algorithm did not consult my nervous system. Look, being on camera and in an inauthentic way becomes a problem for you when you're already tired. You're showing up tired. And what we know is that there are already demands on you as a leader, mission-driven leader, and to do the social part or the marketing part or the showing up and being the show pony part when you're not the show pony can be extra stress on you.
In reality, what's happening is people are being inconsistent. So they're misaligned and they're trying to show up in an identity that isn't natural for them.
They're just misaligned. When that happens, you're going to get burned out. Your messages are going to get muddy. You start questioning your expertise. You either overperform or you just shrink back and disappear. You know, this reminds me, the other day I had someone say their company's social media by juniors in the company aren't on message and maybe not even on mission. And they were worried about this because there was this misalignment in what was happening from their posts and what the juniors were posting, because it was supposed to be their job. And yet they had this idea, oh no. And so it points to there's a misalignment in maybe that junior's identity versus the person in executive power that was seeing this misalignment and felt like it was muddying the messaging. So this is a little bit of correction there too. So we're going to talk about this and try to get everybody authentic and on the right path so that everybody in the business is rowing in the same direction, right?
Because you're not having a visibility problem. You're having your business and how you're showing up is having an identity clarity problem.
Clarity problem. That's exactly right. We've identified 8 natural visibility identities. These aren't marketing tactics. They are expression styles. And ethics are woven into each one. Let's run them.
The educator. You break things down. You clarify complexity. You love frameworks. This is the number one.
Right.
We're going to call it number one. It's not the best. That's not why we're saying that.
Right. And so you're leading as an educator because you like accuracy. That is where you go. It's not about ego. It's not being right. You're just like, okay, it's not about being right. It's about being accurate, right?
And you're driven by wanting to educate people.
Right. So you're the one that's going to be citing sources and making sure that the things that you're putting out there is about educating people. And so you want to admit there's nuance to this sort
Right.
of performance for you, right? This might be speaking to you. Don't oversimplify, because by simplifying, you're rounding in the wrong direction, and that feels wrong, right?
And you might be doing that just to be viral, and that wouldn't, it wouldn't feel good. It would be a misalignment.
Yeah. And so let me just return to a stat here. Research from Edelman, which is a global communication firm, shows 63% of people trust experts more than brands. If you're the educator, that trust is your currency. This is where you show up authentically, and this feels right to you. This is going to pay dividends to your ideal client seeing who you are authentically. It's also going to make you feel good about being on camera or posting, right?
You're going to be comfortable in that position. And so you might use whiteboards.
That's right.
You might use slides with voiceovers. You're going to be calm. You're going to be steady with your explanations.
Right. And so those slides are going to be filled with the stats and the resources and the citations and all that good stuff. And really what you're going to think about is you're going to teach concepts and not be the
like doing for a specific, you may not answer somebody's specific problem with your video.
Right.
It may just be an overview.
Right. So you're going to use examples that without relating identifiable stories. So you're going to say, well, my client X. You're not going to say that. You're going to say, in general, this particular thing happened, and this was the tool, the right citation, the right information that helped alleviate that specific event.
And you're probably going to naturally avoid that this example is going to work for everybody.
Right.
You're positioning yourself as a guide and not the authority of all truth.
That's right. So that leads us to the next identity.
Number two.
So the advocate. So you're liable to be the one that speaks up. You challenge systems, right? You protect people. You connect identity and lived experience to work. This is where you are authentically. This feels right to you, right?
And ethically, you're gonna value responsibility over outrage.
Right. That's going to be your number one place to go, not being outraged.
And you're gonna avoid performative activism, and you're gonna provide pathways, not just pure criticism.
Right. So you really are going to be thinking about direct to camera conviction. You're going to say what you're going to say and be who you are authentically, because it's going to come from inside of you in a natural way. We're going to have cultural commentary. You're going to explain what's happening in, Black, brown communities or different, very specific communities culturally, to explain what is being seen, witnessed, or experienced, right?
And you're going to speak from your perspective, not as the voice of the entire community. You're going to avoid, this is advice, avoid trauma exploitation for engagement.
Right. You don't want to say, well, I was a victim of this sort of abuse, therefore come to me. Whatever. This is not authentic to you. This is not where you're going to live. This is not what you want. That line you don't want to cross.
Right. And you're going to avoid creating us versus them marketing.
Right.
And you're going to stay grounded in the facts when addressing policy or research. So not just this is broken and here's what to do.
So that is the summary of the advocate.
Yeah.
Number 3.
Free.
You connect the dots, right? This is the reporter, the curator, the person who's going to connect the dots, share the trends, and highlight voices.
And you're going to attribute over appropriate. Give credit.
Right.
Always verify. And you can say things like, here's what new research says.
Not only that, you're going to bring those those experts in front and say, look, I've curated this idea, and this person is the person that should be telling you this.
Right.
And
Good
so
point.
not just new research, but
You're right.
here's
You're
a
right.
solution. And so think of it as like rounding up all the experts and the information. That's going to be who you are naturally. You're going to probably show up in an interview type thing where you're bringing experts in, you're curating, you're pulling them together, and you're reporting. It's like, here's the expert, let them tell you, and I'm letting you know I've brought them here and I'm vouching for their expertise. And so this might feel very authentic to you because you are a curator, a reporter type.
And you're going to cite your sources, and you're not going to sensationalize statistics.
Right.
You're going to avoid oversimplifying complex issues.
Right. But you're also going to own your own voice and not hide behind others, because you recognize that they are the experts and you're willing to vouch for them, right?
But you're going to explain that is your own personal opinion versus this is fact.
Right. And it's cite your sources again. So the curator, the reporter. Yep. Number 4, the expert. You go deep. You get into the nitty gritty, all the details, all the history. You specialize. This is your lane. This brings you joy to know what you know like you know it, right?
Expert 4.
That's right. The expert. And, the types of things that you're going to do and feel good about are myth busting. This is not true. I've seen this. This is not working. This is not useful. It's not the right path for, and you're going to have a strong perspective about this. And because of your live experience, and because you are, you go very minutia with the details and understanding, right?
And you're probably going to be able to do a strategy breakdown.
That's exactly how to use this, when to use it.
Right.
Why does it work in this situation, but not that situation?
But you're going to avoid.
Right.
You're going to avoid, this is the only way to do this.
Right. Which is this situation, not that situation. So not the only way.
And you're going to stay in your lane. You're going to stay inside your credentials.
Right. You are not going to be the therapist for veterans if that's not your lane. You're going to be the therapist for LGBTQ. Now, there might be some crossover, but really your lane is here, or you're going to be the video expert and not the marketing expert.
And you're going to be transparent about that. You're going to say, someone else might be able to help you better. That's not my expertise.
That's right. You can soften your authority and have it be inviting and not intimidating. So This is something that you can, exercise and really find a place for you if you are the expert.
Yeah, so humility over dominance. And your expertise is powerful, but don't weaponize it.
Right. So that humility and that humbleness. So we're the expert.
Number 5.
Number 5. You're the coach. You're the consultant. That's where you show up naturally. And what does that mean? That means that you like to guide. You like to reframe. You ask powerful questions, right?
Right. You've got boundaries. You're not gonna be the savior. You don't have a savior complex. You're not someone's therapist, and you are there to support. It is not the only solution to the business problem, whatever you say.
Right, because as a coach or as a consultant, you understand that there's an industry here and this could work in a different situation, and every situation is slightly different. And it's up to you as a consultant to understand those nuances. And you may actually feel this every time you come in and you're like trying to be an educator, but really you're a consultant and you really want to feel like I want to reflect prompts so that people who are that I'm hitting, my audience is reflecting on what could happen or what is the right path.
And
or
a prompt might be, if you're feeling this,
maybe that, if you're feeling like you're not getting enough calls, maybe this, or if you're feeling like your employees aren't engaged, then that. So these are prompts and these are places where you might show up authentically in your post, in your videos.
And your tone is probably going to be a gentler tone.
Yes, as a coach.
Not
as
like a coach, like, give me 10, whatever. That's not a coach, really.
Well, it was in
it could be, yeah.
basketball, yeah.
And you're trying to avoid creating dependency.
Right. You're not their guru.
Right.
You want them to reflect on what you're giving them and coaching them through and consulting them. You're not their guru. You're not their savior. You're not the one that's going to be the only way to answer their problems.
And you want to avoid emotional manipulation. Like, I'm the only one that can fix this. You need me to fix this.
Right.
You're encouraging additional support beyond what you can give.
Right. So as a coach, you understand that you're supporting a system, not just them reflecting. It's like if you're in the wellness space, you're thinking, well, what is it that makes you uncomfortable? And now let's talk about what that system is in general, how you can feel comfort. And it's not just this is the answer. If this is feeling like you, then just know that you show up as a coach or a consultant, right?
You want to talk about the fact that workplace stress.
You talk about the
Burnout.
American Psychological Association reports chronic workplace stress contributes significantly to burnout. Support the mindset. That's where you want to stay, supporting the mindset. But again, you know that there's a bigger system out there that you are trying to point people to live and understand that that's where their support really is coming from, not from you, not from you.
So number 6,
the cheerleader. These last few are a bit of a hybrid.
Right.
They kind of show up in different ways, but the cheerleader is somebody who is energetic, enthusiastic, and is affirming for their people, their audience, their clients, their whatever membership.
And we see a lot of these folks, and it's like when people are listening to them, they're the ones that are like, I believe in you before you may believe in yourself or that anybody else, other people believe in you.
Right. And you might show up with memes and animated fun stuff, exploding flowers or fireworks and that sort of thing. So, visually it can come off with lots of exclamations.
And you want to have honesty come up over the hype because you're cheering them on. They need to believe you. It's got to come from a real place.
Yeah,
so you really do. You're believing in your audience, the people who were there.
And there might be some cheerleader in you, but there are some that are, that are naturally prone to be there. Now, again, just know that it can be a hybrid. You might see it as like, oh, this is a really great idea, and I really believe in you because you personally are their cheerleader, but it might not be your first place for your identity.
So number 7.
The questioner.
The questioner. So I was thinking of the folks, Neil deGrasse Tyson always has somebody on the show who either takes questions or they have their own question. And it's their provoking thought. They're sparking reflection. They're challenging assumptions.
Right. I mean, think of them as like you might be the natural sidekick, the wingman woman, Or you might think of yourself as the natural moderator, so that you are, out there being the questioner, asking the questions and getting people to, and it's a bit of curator. It's a
But it comes from a
reporter.
place of curiosity.
Right, it does. And so, yeah, you want to explore and you don't want to corner people into it. So it is really an authentic place. So you may see some overlap here with the questioner from a previous one.
And then number 8,
the
integrator.
You synthesize across disciplines. You blend strategy, emotion, and data. So how does that look, right? Think about this. You're a strategic thinker and you see a headline about stress in the workplace, and you might actually be a video producer, and you're thinking, well, how do I take this information, this data, and I sprinkle it into what I do that is authentic for what I'm giving.
How would we do that?
How would we do that? We might talk about the identities and authenticity.
About not being aligned.
Right.
And we're not talking about going to a chiropractor. But not being misaligned can cause, of course, it causes stress.
It does.
And so, yeah, integrating, well, what's causing stress with, I don't want to get these videos done.
Right.
Because I have to be someone I'm not.
And in the integrator, you're going to look at context over confusion, because I don't want it to look like I'm an expert over here, but really what I'm thinking about is like, what's the line? What's the direct correlation? What is the impact for the stress over here? If we can do a video that alleviates that, it's not really about that. And I'm not an expert in that, but it's about putting together something that is correct for the client, correct for integrating my strengths and giving you new thoughts.
And so basically what you're saying is we're not going to box ourselves in and pick one.
That's true. There are these identities. You have a primary and a supporting identity, but just know that one is basically dominant. And you've probably felt, oh, yeah, that's me. And just know that there are some other ones in there that feel like a little bit of a tug. And you should know that when you lead with your major self and being authentic in who you actually are and live in those strengths, creating content gets easier, and the stress won't feel stressful. It'll feel like, oh, I get to do what I love to do. Absolutely going to show up.
Like, I'm an introvert, but I got to act like an extrovert. No, you shouldn't have to do that. You've got to figure out how to align yourself with, so that you want to show up every day and you want to do those videos.
Right. And so I'm going to say, grab a pen. We're going to do this mini assessment for your personality, your identity
Your
type,
dominant.
right? Right. For each question, just choose an A, a B, or a C, whichever is instinctive. Don't take too long. Just kind of jot it down. And so here's the first question. When you see misinformation online, you, A, correct it with facts. B, call it out. C, share a better source.
Okay, right. Now moving along. Hopefully you've gotten that done. So the next one, when a client struggles, you, A, ask reflective questions. B, teach a framework. C, encourage them emotionally. Okay.
That should give you enough time. So number 3, when preparing content, you get excited about A, research, B, impact, C, insight.
All right.
What are you getting excited about? Here's our scoring breakdown. If you have mostly A, that means you live in the educator/expert. If you're mostly B,
then you're probably an advocate or a questioner.
And if you're mostly C,
yeah, you probably are a coach or a cheerleader.
Right. Mixed patterns reveal integrator or curator. It depends, right?
So what if somebody scores evenly across all 3 questions?
Well, that usually means you're an integrator or someone trying too hard. Okay. So let's bring logic into this. When your content aligns with identity, who you are naturally, decision fatigue decreases. Performance anxiety drops. And that means you get to be consistent about wanting to do the thing right now that is causing you stress. Right?
So a study from Harvard Business Review highlights that clarity of role significantly increases performance and well-being. And also, the World Health Organization recognizes burnout as an occupational phenomenon linked to unmanaged stress. So when you're trying to perform an unnatural identity online, that's unmanaged stress.
That's unmanaged stress, right? And so let's be clear. Visibility without ethics is just manipulation. Every archetype, every identity has shadow behavior, right? Educator, condescension. Advocate, outrage addiction. Coach, dependency creation. Expert, elitism.
Cheerleader, toxic positivity.
Mm-hmm.
Ethics is the thread that keeps power clean. So ethics isn't a separate module.
It's the operating system. It's where we lean into our true identities, our true selves. We're not just vibing here. We're integrating. And what are we integrating? We're integrating behavioral psychology because this is how you show up naturally. We are integrating organizational research because we talk about how businesses lead and what our missions are and how we create our own business special sauce. And we're leading with data that media can trust, right? You can trust in media. So like if you see a data point out there that is from a questionable source, we want to lead with where there is trust in that data. We're also integrating mental wellness frameworks where we talk about, stress and being aligned. And we're also integrating strategic positioning because where you show up authentically can help your brand because, again, we talked about how leadership is more important than brand trust sometimes. And
you've got to have empathy as well as evidence.
Yeah. So leadership requires both evidence and empathy. You're right. Your identity is not a performance. It's a pattern. And when you understand your natural visibility identity, content becomes lighter, ethics become clearer, consistency becomes sustainable. It's something that you want to do. If you want the full assessment with scoring depth and shadow analysis, download the quiz and we'll put it in the show notes. We'll break down the results on a phone call. So book one with us so we can you can get the inside scoop.
And yes, we expect you to share your results.
We absolutely do. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching this episode of Change the Real.
If you liked it, hit subscribe, share the episode, or drop a comment. We actually read them.
Connect with us or any of our guests on LinkedIn. Check the show notes for links.
And if you're done with DIY and ready to record something that matters in a safe, inclusive space, check out our studio at VelasquezMedia.com.
Remember,
representation starts here.